Chapter 51. Anyway, the relationship, Snooky tended to refer to my relationship with Keith with the capital R, rolled along as smoothly as a Chevy with 4 new shock absorbers, with only the very occasional pothole to jar the ride. Oh, now and then Keith would become impatient with my late hours, or I'd do something I knew would piss him off even as I was doing it just because I bloody well wanted to do it, like hang out after hours with Snooky and maybe Randy and some other homeless musicians. And the next time I saw Keith, I'd know he was angry. I'd find him sitting bolt upright in his favorite blue velveteen wing chair, nearly obliterated from view by that day's Wall Street Journal, silent with the deep, resonant silence it probably took him years to perfect. I can only imagine that, as a boy, Keith was probably something of a pouter. There was something of a pout in the silence he habitually adopted when angry. He didn't actually poke out his lower lip like Shirley Temple, or hold his breath until he turned blue or anything really melodramatic. Still, anytime I found Keith communicating with me in a series of grunts from behind the Dow Jones Industrials, I knew I'd blown it somehow, and I knew I had 2 alternatives. I could wait it out, act like nothing was wrong, and wait for the storm to blow over, or I could try to vamp him out of it, tiptoe downstairs and say, adjust my jockstrap, gently remove the journal from his tense little fingers, perch astraddle his lap, and say in my best sex kitten whisper, whatever it is, I'm sorry. A couple of slow circular pelvic motions, maybe a little kiss on the forehead. Let's not fight, okay? By which time the big guy should be reduced to something the consistency of rice pudding. His fingers are toying with my straps. His lips are kissing my nipples hello. God damn it, KT, he'd say. Why can't I stay mad at you? Strangely enough, it was not my brilliant career that began tossing the occasional sugar cube into the gasoline tank of our love affair. It was Keith's somewhat overzealous possessiveness and jealousy concerning me, in conjunction with the fact that I was, and am, by nature, something of a Bush League exhibitionist and a full-blown, semi-professional status flirt. Snooky, in the spirit of telling me the whole stinking truth, as only your closest and dearest will tell you, only trying to help, of course, has been known to point out that my tendency to make, if you've got it, flaunt it, into the 11th commandment, only evinces a deeply embedded insecurity concerning my sexual attractiveness. So what else is new? I took Psych 1 in college, I got a B+, and even if I hadn't, it wouldn't take Dr. Joyce Brothers to figure this one out. I mean, it's the oldest plot in the book. The ugly duckling as that old queer Hans Christian never told it. Once upon a time, there was a little colored gay boy, a young queen, a princess, as it were, yes, named Johnny Ray. He is a plain child. He is an awkward adolescent. He throws a baseball like a girl. He is the last in his gym class to sprout pubic hair. But suddenly, at the ripe old age of 15, puberty showed its pimply face at Johnny's bedroom window, and the boy, who it turned out was merely a classic late bloomer, bloomed. And when I did finally begin to, bloom, when my face began growing into my teeth, when my Chinaman's eyes became a rather exotic facial asset, when, moreover, I discovered the pleasing results obtainable through weight training, thanks again, coach, and the geometric nightmare that was my physique began to form a more harmonious whole. When, in short, little Johnny Ray achieved his escape from the land of the ugly ducklings, clutching in his hot little fist a one-way ticket to Swan City, I suppose I should, in all fairness, have lived happily ever after. Except for a couple of little things that Hans never mentioned, like the fact that, after spending one's entire life as an ugly duckling, swan status can take some getting used to. I, for one, found that once relatives, who had formerly commented that the best thing about my looks was that I was smart, suddenly began pointing out what a nice-looking young man Johnny was growing into. Once I began to notice that girls were looking at me, but really looking at me, I found that being recognized as a physically attractive person quickly became the most important thing in my life. It was then that I, a mild-mannered high school senior with a 3.8 grade point average, shed the Clark Kent glasses of my soul and emerged as, look, up in the sky, it's a bird, it's a plane, it's super flirt. I flirted with everything that moved. Boys, girls, Clara's friends, David's friends. I winked suggestively at moving vehicles and fire hydrants just for practice. Both because being good-looking was, as Sly Stone might have said, a whole new thing for me, and I was quite heady with it all. And because of something else Hans kept from me, that even after growing from ugly duckling to full-on swan, I would look into the mirror and find staring back at me, as often as not, a skinny, big-headed, slanty-eyed boy, the old, ugly duckling. Not even to mention the small but stubbornly adhesive chip I'd been wearing on my shoulder since the day, during the second semester of my senior year in high school, when I first saw the classified section of The Advocate, and first read the words, "No fats, femmes, or blacks, please." I'm afraid I took it quite personally. And I'll tell you, I didn't get over that one for a long while. No, I take that back. I'm still not over that one. This new knowledge that some, perhaps most, white gay men considered black men sexually unsuitable added fuel to the fires of my overall sense of physical inferiority. Coals to Newcastle, indeed. So when a white man exhibited sexual interest in me, not only was it a swan's personal victory over an ugly duckling past, it was, to my mind, a peculiar sort of victory against racism. It was proving them wrong, all the stupid, small-minded them who would actually commit the words, "No blacks, please," to print. Wrong, wrong, wrong. Of course, it wasn't nearly enough for one white man to want me. By cracky, I wanted them all to want me. I didn't actually want to fuck each and every one of them individually, far from it. No, most of the time it was the flirtation itself that really mattered. At the first sign that a man wanted me, I'd simply smile a rather self-satisfied little smile to myself, notch my gun handle, and move on. And, I shudder to admit this, I'd hate for you to think I was a serious neurotic person. Whenever I did take a white man to bed, even Louis, yes, I'm afraid, even Keith, there was no escaping the nasty little voice way back in my head, yelling, "No blacks, huh? No blacks my ass." The prettier, the blonder, the more Aryan the man, the bigger, if no more permanent, the sense of victory at the sight of the man's fair head bobbing between my thighs. I suppose I truly am, as Snooky often tells me, a sick, sick woman. Which brings us back to the summer of '79, when strolling along the Santa Monica Pier with Keith, I unbuttoned my shirt completely, allowing my shirt tails to blow like little white flags in the ocean breezes, allowing those same breezes to tickle my tummy and cool my moist armpits, and allow anyone who might enjoy doing so to view the clear-cut delineations of my abdominal muscles and what was becoming a very nice chest. "Button your shirt, KT," Keith said in the sort of voice people generally reserve for us while rubbing the puppy's nose in what he did on the new white rug. "Why?" I raised my arms behind my head. I noticed a couple of older queen types in expensive haircuts and white patent leather shoes licking their chops as we passed. "Just button your goddamn shirt, KT. The dog has done it again on the same rug, and we're considering having him put to sleep." Keith wouldn't even look at me. I stopped dead in my tracks, fighting back tears, fighting back the urge to tear the big guy a brand new asshole, clutching the two sides of my shirt to myself. Keith walked on alone for a few yards, then stopped. Turned and walked back to where I stood, absolutely a-tremble with hurt and rage. He took me by the shoulders. "I'm sorry, KT," he whispered. I blinked tears and sniffed snot. I just don't want my main squeeze walking around the goddamn pier with everything hanging out like some cheap little hustler on Santa Monica Boulevard. I attempted to speak, but sort of choked instead. Anyway, what could I have said? "Gee, I'm sorry, but you see, I'm just awfully neurotic." Keith took me into his arms right there on the pier, and I wept an archipelago of wet spots on his shirt, and we walked off. Keith's arms around my shoulders, mine around his waist, my shirt buttoned to the throat. Then there was the time we were in the pleasure chest, the A&P of sexual paraphernalia, studded leather harnesses and feather bows with sequins, try aisle 10. Buying a tub of what is politely termed personal lubricant, neither butter nor the high-priced spread Crisco, Vaseline nor Jergens hand lotion proved suitable to our uses, and I had stopped at the expansive greeting card rack. It was by this time mid-August, and so hot you could poach an egg on the small of a skateboarding beach boy's back, and I was, that particular Sunday afternoon, somewhat scantily clad in a white tank top, a pair of infinitesimal gym shorts, on a clear day you could see all the way to Catalina, if you catch my drift, and high-top tennies, my Peter Berlin fuckable young boy get-up. Well, there I stood, chest out, stomach in, rear bringing up the rear, when an older gentleman, polite terms, less polite terms include old toad, wearing one of Truman Capote's old suits and 12 or 13 pounds of silver and turquoise conch jewelry, sidled up beside me. Stood just a little too close, this town wasn't big enough for me and his cologne, and executed a perfect imitation of Jane Mansfield's squeal from Girl Can't Help It. "Why, you pretty little thing," the man crowed. The voice was like Julie Andrews recorded at 45 and played at 33 and a third. I turned, widened my eyes. "Who, me?" "Now stop it," the man said, slapping me on the arm, his hand lingering for a moment and then sliding down my biceps. He smiled the earth-toned smile of a heavy smoker. He was handsome, straight-nosed and cleft-chinned, with eyes as blue as the pattern on a Corningware casserole. He had surely been a knockout as a young man. He was now close enough to 50 to see the gray hairs up its nostrils. A good 25 pounds overweight, and the blusher unskillfully applied to his cheeks accentuated rather than masked the dirty tricks that time, the bitch, was playing on his once beautiful face. "You're a lovely boy, and you know it. I just wanted to thank you for sharing it with us all." "Please," I said, lowering my eyes in Lillian Gish modesty. "You're embarrassing me." "My arse," he said with a bad boy grin. I smiled. This man had seen this game before. Might have helped design the court. "You do have a lovely body," he said. "I'd like to do something with you sometime." "Oh?" I'm not sure, my eyebrows raised. My, this one was nothing if not direct. This one was nothing if not direct. "That's not what I meant, Ducky," he said. He pursed his lips. "Although that would be nice as well. You don't know who I am?" "No," I had to admit. "Should I?" "Well," he snatched a card from the rack. It was a photograph of the perfect tan California blonde boy. From the back, it might have been Louis, on tiptoe, hands behind his head. I'd have known the style anywhere. "You're Matthew Richards?" I had been admiring and jerking off to Matthew Richards' work for years. Matthew's boys, along with the best of Roy Dean and Rip Colt, had been the standard for male physique photography for even longer than that. "You betcha. And you want to photograph me? Little old me?" "Why, yes. Gosh, I very seldom use the word gosh. Wait, gosh. I very seldom use the word gosh. This, however, was the very living end. I had obviously become one major swan here. If there was anything I wanted to be more than I wanted to be a singing star, I wanted to be a sex pot. And here was Matthew Richards, a veritable Vargas of the male nude, offering to make yours truly into just that, a sure-as-shit backlit airbrush J.O. fantasy. So what do you think? "No," I said, "but thank you. I really mean that." I touched the man's leathery cheek. "You've made my day, possibly my week." "But why, darling? Sure you're not going to plead modesty, not in that outfit." "Oh, no," I admitted. "It's just that, well, frankly, my boyfriend would kill me." At which point Keith descended the stairs, the little black paper bag with his purchase in hand. "Ready to go, KT?" "Okay, Daddy-O." Richards made a head gesture in Keith's direction. "Boyfriend?" "The very one." He gave Keith a lingering once-over, then a twice-over. "How nice for you both," he said. "KT?" Keith raised a menacing eyebrow. "Gotta go." Extended my hand to Richards, who clasped it in his cushioned palm. "Thanks again. Very nice to meet you." "My pleasure. Ta, ducks." In the car. Who was that? Matthew Richards, well-known photographer of the male nude. He wanted to shoot me, as it were. "KT," Keith said through an exasperated sigh. "KT what?" "KT," another exasperated sigh. "It was a come-on, pure and simple. You like TC thinking you're so hip and with it, and you don't even know a common garden variety come-on when you're slapped across the chops with it. And why, may I ask, is it so terribly far-fetched that the man might have wanted to take my picture? Johnny Ray, you're cute, okay? You're a beautiful kid. But sometimes I really wish you could stop kissing mirrors and playing sex kitten long enough to see how foolish you look sometimes." "Foolish?" "Foolish, KT, as in like a goddamn fool. I mean really, walking around like that, dressed like some little street hustler, some old queen hands you a line and Some old queen hands you a line and suddenly you're Marilyn fucking Monroe, laying all over the red satin. Don't you believe you're beautiful? Don't I tell you enough that you're lovely? Don't you believe me? Jesus Christ, babe, I just wish I was enough for you. Of course you're enough for me. It just... Bullshit, I'm not enough. Nobody's enough. I don't think there's enough people on earth to tell you you're cute enough time... to tell you you're cute enough time so you'll be satisfied and just fucking leave it alone. It was one of those extremely rare instances when I was totally at a loss for words. The big guy had my number down to the last digit. I bit my lip and dared the tears to come. I felt like kicking a hole through the floor out of the car. Well, fuck you, I finally said, a desperate reply if there ever was one. Such a way with words, Keith said. Needless to say, the silence was deafening at the old homestead that night. We didn't speak. We didn't make eye contact. We didn't make love. When Keith marched up to the bed at about 9:15, he didn't even kiss me good night, which was wise, as I probably would have bitten his lip off. I was consumed with a sort of rage I only feel when someone has managed to hit one of my major neuroses right on the head. I do hate for anyone to be so completely right about me. But I cooled off, gradually, and accepted grudgingly that Keith was right. I wasn't just a flirt. I was a desperate flirt, and I resolved to do better, to go on the wagon, as it were. Had I known of a Flirts Anonymous, I would surely have joined up. I did my level best to keep my shirt on and my eyes to myself, and generally managed to keep my nose clean. And then Sly called.